A single event ignited a conflict that engulfed the entire globe, altering the course of history forever. But what if I told you that the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was just the tip of the iceberg? Recent historical research and debates have uncovered hidden factors behind World War I that go beyond what most people know. From secret alliances and unchecked nationalism to economic rivalries and diplomatic blunders, the real story is more complex and shocking than you might think. Stick around as we reveal these untold aspects and explain why World War I was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. World War I, often called the Great War, was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. It lasted from 1914 to 1918 and involved many of the world's nations, including major powers from Europe, Asia, and beyond. It wasn't just a battle of armies, it was a clash of ideologies, economic interests, and political ambitions. While most people are familiar with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the immediate events that followed, there's much more to the story. Behind the surface, there were deep-seated issues and complex factors that contributed to the outbreak of the war. Today, we're going to dig into these hidden causes and reveal why World War I happened in ways that are often overlooked or misunderstood. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest videos, and let us know in the comments what topics you want us to cover next. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary on June 28, 1914, is commonly cited as the immediate spark that ignited World War I. Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was killed by a Bosnian Serb nationalist during a visit to Sarajevo. This tragic event set off a chain reaction of political maneuvering and military mobilizations. But while this assassination was the trigger, it was far from the whole story. The truth is, there were deeper issues simmering beneath the surface that made the world ready to explode into war. While this assassination was the immediate trigger, it's important to understand that it didn't happen in a vacuum. The real reasons behind World War I involved deeper issues that had been brewing for years. Now let's look at the underlying political tensions that made the world ready for such a massive conflict. These include rising nationalism, aggressive imperialism, and a dangerous arms race. Nationalism was a powerful force leading up to World War I. It's the belief that people who share a common language, culture, and history should have their own nation or state. In the early 20th century, many ethnic groups in Europe wanted independence from larger empires. This intense pride in one's nation and the desire for self-determination created a lot of friction. Nationalist movements in countries like Serbia, Germany, and Italy fueled tensions and contributed to the atmosphere of hostility. Imperialism, or the competition for colonies and resources, was another key factor. Major powers like Britain, France, and Germany were in a race to acquire territories around the globe. This competition for dominance not only created rivalries, but also conflicts over resources and strategic locations. As these nations expanded their empires, they often came into conflict with each other, increasing the likelihood of a larger confrontation. Militarism, the belief in building up strong armed forces to prepare for war, also played a crucial role. In the years leading up to World War I, many European countries were engaged in an arms race, rapidly expanding their armies and navies. This buildup of military power created a climate of fear and suspicion. Nations began to view each other as potential threats, and the resulting arms race only made the prospect of war more likely. These rising tensions, fueled by nationalism, imperialism, and militarism, were further complicated by the intricate system of alliances that had been established. In the lead-up to World War I, Europe was divided into two main alliance blocs. On one side was the Triple Entente, composed of France, Russia, and Britain. On the other side was the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. These alliances were meant to provide security and deter aggression by creating a balance of power. However, this system had a dark side. The alliances meant that any conflict involving one country could quickly involve its allies. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, it triggered a chain reaction. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, declared war on Serbia. This act set off a cascade of mobilizations and declarations of war among the allies, drawing in nations that otherwise might have stayed out of the conflict. The alliance system created a domino effect where a local conflict could escalate into a world war. Each nation was bound to defend its allies, and once the initial spark was ignited, the entire system of alliances led to a widespread and uncontrollable conflict. The web of alliances ensured that what could have been a regional dispute turned into a global war. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were marked by rapid industrialization. Countries across Europe were investing heavily in industrial technology and infrastructure, which led to increased production and economic growth. However, this industrial boom also heightened competition among nations. Industrialized countries sought to protect their economic interests, including access to resources and markets, which contributed to rising tensions. The race to outproduce and outmilitary adversary each other created a sense of urgency and rivalry. Nations felt the need to expand their influence and secure their economic interests, often at the expense of others. This competitive environment played a significant role in escalating the conflict. Economic rivalries also played a crucial role in the lead-up to World War I. Nations were not only competing for colonies and resources, but also for economic dominance. Countries like Germany and Britain were in fierce competition over trade routes and markets. These economic disputes created a breeding ground for conflict as nations tried to assert their dominance and protect their economic interests. Economic factors, combined with the intense nationalism and imperialism of the time, contributed to a climate ripe for conflict. The desire to secure economic advantages often overshadowed diplomatic solutions, pushing nations closer to war. In the years leading up to World War I, there were numerous attempts to resolve conflicts through diplomacy, but these efforts largely failed. Many leaders and diplomats were aware of the growing tensions and the potential for a large-scale conflict. Despite various peace talks and negotiations, the underlying issues were not adequately addressed. Each nation was more focused on maintaining its own position and influence rather than finding a compromise. A complex network of alliances and the rigid stance of many governments made diplomatic resolutions difficult. When conflicts arose, the existing diplomatic mechanisms were either too slow or ineffective to prevent the situation from escalating into a full-blown war. Another significant issue was the lack of effective communication between nations. During this period, communication technology was still developing, and many governments struggled to share information quickly and accurately. Misunderstandings and misinterpretations of each other's actions and intentions were common. This poor communication contributed to the escalation of tensions. Nations often acted based on incomplete or incorrect information, leading to further misunderstandings and hostile responses. The inability to clearly and effectively communicate intentions and concerns played a crucial role in turning regional conflicts into a global war. Propaganda played a powerful role in shaping public opinion and fueling the fires of war. Governments across Europe used propaganda to stir up nationalistic fervor and to demonize enemy nations. Through newspapers, posters, and other media, people were bombarded with messages that painted rival nations as evil and dangerous. This widespread propaganda not only heightened public support for the war, but also contributed to a climate of hatred and mistrust. As people came to view the enemy through the lens of propaganda, the potential for diplomatic solutions diminished. The public's strong emotional reactions made it more difficult for leaders to back down or negotiate peacefully. Public sentiment was another crucial factor. As nations mobilized for war, there was significant pressure from the public to take a strong stance. Many people were caught up in the excitement and patriotism of the time, often viewing the war as a noble cause. This public enthusiasm made it harder for leaders to seek peaceful resolutions, as doing so could be seen as a betrayal of national pride and sacrifice. Social pressures and cultural attitudes shaped by propaganda and nationalistic fervor played a significant role in pushing nations toward conflict. The strong public sentiment for war made diplomatic efforts more challenging and contributed to the overall escalation of tensions. If you enjoy the video, please like and share the video, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest videos. And let us know in the comments what topics you want us to cover next.